Information and General Services Committee will now come to order. Our first action will be to announce the continuation of item number 5 for 2 weeks to a subsequent meeting of this committee in 2 weeks. That's item number 5. With that, we'll move now to item number 2. Item number 2.
Item number 2, motion Weezer Cardenas relative to directing the Department of General Services to report on what steps it is taking to deal with higher gasoline prices and the potential impacts to the city budget.
Good morning.
Good morning. Angela Sheriff with the Department of General Services. The Mayor and Council have adopted policies in early 2000 to buy the most fuel-efficient vehicles, and as a result, GSD has purchased a total of 1,140 hybrid vehicles. The city's hybrid vehicles have logged about 23 million miles since 2000, and we've saved the city about $2.7 million. In addition, the Mayor's office has instructed departments to reduce fuel consumption and to reduce their fleets by 10%. GSD has been meeting with the departments to assist them in determining which vehicles they will be returning. In addition, GSD has negotiated favorable fuel contracts with discounts, which basically relates to about 30 cents less at city sites than commercial sites. The city has also utilized proactive maintenance standards that ensure that city vehicles are in good running order and therefore more fuel efficient. Maintenance includes ensuring that tires are inflated properly, oil is changed in timely manners, and we make sure that vehicles are tuned properly. In addition to all these things, GSD is working in a working group with the Mayor's office and the CAO to look at fuel in its totality. To date, there have been 2 meetings, and we are looking at the feasibility of completing a study which could possibly look at many areas having to do with fuel, how fuel is acquired, the reliability of fuel supply chain, reducing fuel consumption, and the optimal use of fuel. Additionally, the Controller's Office is currently auditing the fuel system and may have some ideas to be generated that could also be incorporated. Based on the work that General Services is doing currently, it is recommended by General Services that we actually report back to ITGS once the Controller's audit has been completed and once the working group has determined whether or not a feasibility report will be done. In this way, GSD can submit a comprehensive report to this committee.
When would that be? When do you anticipate that?
I anticipate that the audit that the Controller's Office is doing will be completed in about 4 months, and I think right around the same time the working group should complete its work also.
Okay. All right. What we'll do is we'll hold this item in committee subsequent to the working group report, and we'll hear this in the committee at that time when that report comes forward to this committee. Okay. There are no public comment cards on item number 2. With that, item number 2 will be held in committee to be heard in subsequent committee hearing of this committee, along with the working group report as mentioned in the report. Okay. With that, we move to item number 6.
Item number 6, motion Parks Cardenas relative to instructing the CLA and the CAO with the assistance of the Information Technology Agency, LAFD, LAPD, Emergency Management Department, proprietary departments, and any other department who may use mass notification system technology to report with an evaluation of mass notification systems and related matters.
Good morning. Anne Marie Sauer with the CLA. This motion discusses the importance of mass notification systems. There has been discussion about upgrading the city's current system, which is operated by the fire department. The fire department presented options to upgrade its system, However, it would require significant upgrades to the city's existing technology infrastructure. Excuse me. The motion asks our office, along with various other departments, including the proprietaries, to report back with an evaluation of mass notification systems, how they are used in other public agencies, and how this type of system could be applied to non-emergency city operations. As the lead on this, we've contacted the proprietary departments and ITA, and we'll be following up with the other departments in the coming weeks so we can report back to this committee.
How long do you anticipate it should take for you to accumulate that information?
About 60 days?
60 days. Okay. All right. Is there anybody here for public comment on item number 6? We are now on item number 6. Okay. All right. We have Councilmember Parks is the originator of this motion. We anticipate he'll be here in a few minutes. So on this item number 6, we're going to hold it in committee and open it back up in a few minutes for questions from Councilmember Parks.
Thank you.
We now move to item number 4.
Item number 4, City Attorney Report and Resolution relative to request to destroy certain obsolete records from the Department of Transportation Franchise Regulation and Parking Operations Support Bureau and Parking Operations Support Division for the period of January 1st, 1985 through February 28th, 2003.
Okay.
Todd Godowski from the City Clerk's Office. These are all records related to payment of parking violation fines. They've been reviewed by the Department of Transportation and by the City Attorney's Office, and they're in favor of the destruction. The boxes are at a commercial record storage center, so we are paying monthly for their storage.
Okay. So these 1,861 boxes cost close to $3,500 a year just to store.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. All right. Anybody else here for public comment on item number 4? We're currently on item number 4, and public comment is now open. Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 4 is now closed. With that, it'll be a recommendation of the chair of this committee to approve the city attorney's report and resolution. Thank you. Okay. We'll now move to item number 3.
Item number 3, motion, Weiss Rosendahl Grul, relative to approval of the sale and purchase prices of certain tax defaulted properties for sale to the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority pursuant to Section 3800 of the Revenue and Taxation Code and related matters.
Okay. Is there any staff here to report on this item? Okay. All right. Is there anybody here from the public to speak on this item? Public comment on item number 3 is now open. Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 3 is now closed. With that, this committee will instruct the CAO to report the total number of county tax defaulted properties and value of those properties purchased within the city of Los Angeles and report back to the council within 30 days. CEO would like to comment on whether or not 30 days is enough time to report back on that item.
That should probably be enough.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, this recommendation of the chair is to adopt this item. Okay. Okay, we now move to item number 1.
Item number 1, CAO report relative to proposed amendment number 10 to contract number C-105458 with Hess and Associates, Inc. for programming services for software support for the payroll system replacement project, formerly council file number 99-1641.
Before you is the 10th Amendment between the city and Hess and Associates for programming services for software support for the payroll system replacement project, commonly known as PACER. The PACER project was initiated in July 2000 and has produced a modern, flexible payroll system custom-built for the city and at relatively low cost. Contrast this with the 2 previous failed attempts to replace the payroll system, or the much more expensive Los Angeles Unified School District payroll implementation disaster that was slated to go over the $200 million mark. This contract amendment is for $935,000, which with prior awards brings the total to $6,570,000. Add this to the $2.2 million of the first contract, and we are still under $10 million for contracting services for the payroll system. That has paid city employees and elected officials accurately and on time.
Okay.
Phase 1 replacement of the payroll system has been completed, except for the continuing analysis and replacement as necessary of the legacy system payroll reports. Phase 2 enhancement to the payroll system has paralleled Phase 1 and is giving the city better tools to manage its workforce. Major productivity-enhancing deliverables under this contract amendment include automation of Fair Labor Standards Act rules, position reporting, and work restriction tracking for workers' compensation. Nam Nguyen from the Controller's Office is here and available for any questions you may have.
Okay.
Morning.
Any comments before our questions?
I think the CAO, Nam Nguyen from the Controller's Office, the report from the CAO is very accurately depict the progress of the project, and we concur with the CAO report.
Okay. When it comes to the deliverables, how does the reprioritization of certain activities impact other deliverables?
The prioritization of deliverable is determined by the PACER Steering Committee. At the beginning of the fiscal year, we established an overall priority for each deliverable. However, depending on the changes in the environment and requirement from the elected official and so on, the city steering committee could change or delay certain deliverable to future years and reprioritize the work program. For example, during the manage hire process, we had to develop a module to enable that function to support the city's manage hire process or the potential layoff process. We had to reprioritize it to work on the employee work history, which is an essential part of that. So that, in essence, delays certain modules such as the automation of the FLSA enforcement. So once we're now done with the employee work history, we're now going back to the FLSA automation process and keep developing on that.
Okay. For example, if there's an impact on the implementation date or operational date of Group 1 deliverables, how would that affect other aspects?
The Group 1 and Group 2 are based on certain criteria that the stakeholders agreed upon, such as we look at the impact of the deliverable on the city's legal obligation or financial impact. So those receive the highest priority for development. We do not anticipate to move any item from Group 2 into Group 1 unless there are needs that are identified by the steering committee in the upcoming months. And
when is Group 1 expected to be operational?
The Group 1s are expected to be delivered in chunk by quarter deliverable, and they are deliverable in chunk by September, December, March, and June, for example. And so they are not one module that we deliver. It's delivered in 10 or 12 separate modules addressing different aspects of the enhancement for next year.
And when do we expect to achieve all of those modules?
We expect to, barring any unexpected changes, we expect to meet the schedule in this year contract for deliverable of the Group 1.
So by July 31st of next year?
Yes.
Okay. So what legal requirements were not fully understood at the beginning of this project?
Mostly not so much of the understanding of the legal requirement, but trying to research into past practice and see how that, and then try to consolidate various provision between the admin code or the MOU, for example. Take an example, the mileage guarantee. We have provision in admin code to provide certain mileage guarantee for mileage employee, but we also have special provision in MOU that we have to honor. So the system has to be flexible enough to deal with that, and that's the process we're going through. Same with the automation of FLSA. We have different groups within the city have different rules applied to them. We have rules for LAPD officer, rule for fire department firefighters, rule for civilian employee, and so all of that will have to be now consolidated into an automated fashion. Currently, these rules are being enforced manually by procedures within operating departments. We want to take that guesswork out of the department and then enhance the system. This was doable because now we have a new system that allow us the opportunity to look into some of these major enhancements to help the city in better compliance in an automated fashion with FLSA, for example.
Now, when it comes to Hess and Associates and the relationship with the city, how's that working out so far as timeliness, understanding the relationship and staying as close as possible to all the deliverable dates?
We work very closely with the Hess and Associates contractors. The methodology they use is not a typical development cycle where we have a full documentation of the requirement established upfront in details. The methodology they use and we approve of is that we use a prototyping methodology where he worked and the team worked with the user and in the interactive mode to develop based on the initial scope document, which is in general functionality. And then through the interactive session and prototyping session, that's where the details are developed and then worked right there into the program. So as a result, we could have multiple iteration of one deliverable. So they may complete the first cut, we review it, and then make changes. They have to come back and do another iteration. So there are times that the contractor could not meet the requirement, and many of that falls into the cases where we have emergency, we have changes in the city priority, where we have to interrupt the development process of certain module and change that mode into a different module. So that's secondly, we are replacing a very complex legacy system that has 30 years history of requirement built into the legacy system, and we basically have to do constant parallel run to make sure that the result that the new system delivers are consistent with the result we see in the legacy. So that the full scope of that parallel operation was not realized at the very beginning of the project. But as we get into more deeper analysis, it's taking more time to make sure that everything is operational as expected. The most important aspect of the quality control is making sure employees are not are paid correctly, and that's the foremost concern. And so a lot of testing has to take place to make sure that it's totally transparent, the system is, the city is now operating in the new payroll system, but it's to the employee, they still receive the paycheck every 2 weeks, and it's totally transparent to them. There's no major disruption in the city business, and that's attributed to the time that it takes to do all of the testing necessary.
Every 2 weeks, approximately how many pay checks are delivered?
We deliver approximately 40,000 paychecks, and with the accuracy of 99.98% accuracy, which is far exceeding the quality of even this industry standard. The total since the go live of the system until now, we have delivered a total of payment of more than $2.2 billion and deliver more than, in 2007, 1.3 million checks. And in 2008, so far, we have delivered 8,800 checks.
Okay. Any questions?
Let
Item
me
one.
just ask a couple. One thing, and we went back in our file, it goes all the way back to, I think, June 30th of '06 is the last time we've had a CAO report that outlines all of the things that we're trying to achieve in this system. And I was just wondering, is after almost 2 years, is there an ability to get the CAO to give us an update? Because when we deal with these things incrementally, we're approving amendment number 10 and moving this up to a $6.5 million contract. But I don't get a sense of what's left and whether we're going to get to amendment 10 or 12 or 15 or what is to take us. So if we can, I'd like to see if we can get something that will tell us what's left on this
We can provide that report.
contract, how many more amendments. And then one of the issues that's always of concern as we spend this kind of money, when does that knowledge transfer occur so that we are getting this into the city family as opposed to paying consultants for the rest of our lives? So those are the two major things I'd like to see, if we can get an update of what's left, phase one, phase two, what the potential costs are. And I'm assuming the funds are what we allocated to the controller during the budget process.
Okay. How long do you need to report back on those two items?
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yes.
I mean, if it's something available that can go before it goes to council and go in the committee report, it would be very helpful.
Well,
We'd
this
have-
has a placeholder in council for the 30th.
For tomorrow.
Because this Hess contract expires on the 31st.
Okay. All right, we'll do-
So 30 or 45 or 60 days on those other reports? Report back?
45 days.
45? Okay. All right. Okay. So this committee will move. Oh, anybody here? I don't have any public comment cards on item number 1. Anybody here to make public comment on item number 1? Item number 1, public comment is open. Seeing and hearing none, it is now closed. With that, it's the action of this committee to approve the CAO report and also to receive a report back in 45 days on the two items as directed by Councilmember Parks in this committee. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we will now move to item number 6. Councilmember Parks, we're now on item number 6. It's a motion generated by you, and the staff already began their opening statements on that item, but I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to ask your questions.
Anne Marie Sauer with the CLA. I just basically provided an overview of the motion and let you know that as the lead on this, our office has contacted the proprietary departments and ITA, and we'll be following up with the other departments in the coming weeks so we can report back to the committee.
I think the main issue is that I think the fire department, through its effort, has kept us alive and well on I guess we call it a reverse 911 system. But I think that where we were headed, we're going to be expending a considerable amount of money, what appears to be an antiquated system, because technology has moved us a lot further along. I had a chance to monitor an active system, not a prototype, but an active system, where it appears that one of the major features is that they update it as opposed to the city taking up that responsibility. It's web-based, and it's based on a card or priority system in which you are given certain access, and it's for emergencies and non-emergencies. In fact, you can use their mapping program to identify a certain segment of the city, such as your council district, and if you wish to put out a verbal message that says, for the next 3 years, Vermont's going to be closed due to the sewer repair, you can do that just merely by punching in those numbers, and they keep it updated in sources. So it appears that we have technology that has gone well past what we were developing, and I wanted to make sure that we didn't go spend $500,000 to $2 million on a system that is based on telephones and bodies and people sitting there making these calls. If we can do it electronically by paying into a fee each year, that would give a significant broader level of service. And so we wanted to bring people together that can monitor that, see what the cost benefit is. And again, what was impressive, it wasn't a prototype. It wasn't something that somebody said, I can do this. They actually plugged you into a system that's working, and while we're in the conversation, they actually buzzed your phone with your own message. I mean, so it shows you that it actually does work. So that's what we'd like to see if we can move forward, because we keep, I think we unnecessarily put a lot of pressure on the Emergency Preparedness Department to do this kind of stuff, but we don't give them the tools for emergencies. And certainly I think every elected official will find some use if they, I mean, this could actually take, we always say we're going to cut down on paper, but this actually could take the place of the 199 letters in a sense of a normal mode of business, where you can go on the system, identify a certain part of the community, and tell them you just put in a stoplight or something like that. It's a very unique system, and we just like to see if we could explore it, find out if it's something that's cost effective and whether we can afford it. Before we go expend money into what appears to be a technology that's not close in the sense of this level of technology.
Understood. Okay.
So how soon can we expect that information?
I think if we still stick with the 60 days for the preliminary report back, that should work.
One thing I was wondering too, after you have your meetings, I think it would be very impressive if we could actually, if you find a couple of vendors, if they could bring the system to committee and actually let you experience it, as opposed to us talking about it on paper. And I think you get a better sense of what they're talking about.
Will do.
Okay. So we'll hear that report back in 60 days. There are no public comment cards on item number 6. Item number 6, public comment is open. Seeing and hearing none, it's now closed. With that, we'll continue this item and hear it in 60 days when we receive those reports.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we move to the last item on the agenda, item number 7.
Item number 7, motion Perry Parks relative to authorizing the general manager of the GSD or his designee to negotiate and execute a lease agreement with the Los Angeles Neighborhood Land Trust for .34 acres of land on Gage Avenue and Avalon Boulevard in Council District 9.
Good morning, Neil Drucker, Public Works Engineering.
And Sela Berman, Executive Director of the Los Angeles Neighborhood Land Trust.
Good morning.
Good morning. The Bureau of Engineering recommends the issuance and approval of this committee and forwarding forthwith to Council of a recommendation to lease a 0.34 acre site at the corner. It's basically a traffic island at Gage and Avalon to the LA Neighborhood Land Trust for use as a community park. Just to let the committee know, the LANLT has applied for and received a Prop K grant in the amount of $217,000 to fund the work and commits to operating and maintaining the park.
When we originally applied, we had thought that this was under the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Street Services, and we had a letter from the Bureau of Street Services committing to lease the property to us, if we got the Prop K agreement. When we went to go work that out, they then told us that it was under GSD's jurisdiction, and so that's why we are asking for to move this forward. So we have a time deadline in the fall, and so we really need to move forward on the lease with GSD.
Okay. Question?
I was just going to ask you, we're going to contact you about a similar project, but we're trying to work out some environmental issues on Western and Gage. So we'll be in touch with you soon.
Okay. Is there anybody else here from the public who'd like to comment? The two public comment cards, the two individuals are already up here. Mr. Drucker and Ms. Berman. With that, public comment, seeing and hearing no more public comment, additional public comment. Public comment is now closed on this item number 7. So with that, the committee will adopt a motion and instruct GSD to immediately negotiate and execute a lease with the LA Neighborhood Land Trust and forward this to council. And at this point in time, it looks as though we have a motion. We will have a placeholder on Friday's council, which is August 1st. Is that lease agreement going to be executable by then?
It won't be ready by then.
Okay. But the terms are understood by all the parties? Okay. So it's just a matter of making sure. Okay. All right. So with that, okay. Any additional comments from the Land Trust? Okay. So far, so good, right? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. With that, this item is approved. And it'll be heard in council on Friday, August 1st. General public comment is now open to this committee. Anybody here for general public comment to this committee? General public comment is open. It is now closed. With that, anything else from the committee before we adjourn?
Let me just ask one thing. On item 3, and you've already approved it, but I was wondering whether we could get something in the committee report that just gives us an idea of what the value, assessed value of that property is, and what the property tax loss to the city would be as it relates to that particular, because I'm assuming they're a nonprofit and we'll take that off the tax roll.
Yeah, if it's owned by a not-for-profit,
Yeah.
correct. Okay. All right, so specifically, we have some report backs, but in addition to that, the specific value of that property and therefore the tax loss once it moves into not-for-profit's hands based on the value.
So for the record, Councilman Parks, you are also approving item number 3?
Yes.
With the
With those requests.
add request.
Okay. All right, any other comment to this committee? Seeing and hearing none, this committee is now adjourned.